Okay, so I often cold open this show with some variation on things are weird in the CFL. But you know what? I had this revelation this week. This week, perhaps the way we have arrived at this point is strange. But if you think about it, the way the league is set right now, it's not very strange at all. We knew this at the beginning of the year. More after the break, right here on the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. Welcome to the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. My name's Oz Davis. I'm the co-host of the show, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Joe Pritchard. Joe, you packed up already for the annual pilgrimage?
I am. I actually had to get one of my old shirts out of the back of the drawer because all my good stuff is packed.
All right. So going up to the Great White North to check out the Banjo Bull this weekend. When are you leaving? When are you leaving for that?
Friday morning.
Friday
I should
morning.
be in Winnipeg around noonish.
Oh, great. Wow. Excellent. Yeah. So you get quite a bit of quality time there. All right. We'll talk about what you're expecting out of the game later on, Joe. But after being the naysayer last week on Winnipeg, are they going to sweep the Riders again?
Well, they better. I mean, you get this one. You better not drop the second one, right? The first one's a hard one. That's the one where you saw it in the second half.
Yes.
You saw it's like Labor Day is its own beast, and it completely consumed Winnipeg in the second half. They were seconds away from losing. I would say one more if the Riders would have one more play before the field goal, it would have gotten them close enough.
Quite possibly.
Just the way that works.
Yep.
And all the stuff before it, the touchdown drive, the failed two conversion, the onside kick, that was just to twist the knife, right? That was going to be, you think you've won, and at that point, they had all the momentum. So I'm glad the time ticked away as fast as it did.
Yeah, we almost had our first bona fide no lead is safe moment in a while this weekend with a couple of games. That one being
which
one
is
of them.
Always true on Labor Day. Always.
Yeah. Another good Labor Day of games, more or less. Pretty interesting stuff this weekend. But I wanted to take a bigger picture view. My sort of rambling introduction was talking about, so I was looking at the preseason predictions that we had made. The CFL official website this season had opened up sort of props contest. Make 15, I think it was, predictions about this season. Throw them all in a hat, see who wins. And I was looking at these predictions, and except for a fanciful pick or two by myself, We were not that far off from what many CFL fans were thinking, at least those outside of Saskatchewan.
Ooh,
I
and
mean,
we have video proof of that too. That was one of our first video shows.
that's
We
right.
actually went through the whole list and made our picks that way.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, but I mean, basically, I mean, if you remember back to the beginning of the season, right? Pretty much everyone expected that the West would be coming down to BC and Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's happening. Uh, Almost everybody had Montreal winning the East. Um, I'm sure. I'm sure a few people who made their predictions a bit too early had Toronto, but I think most people had Montreal. We both had Montreal to get the most wins in the league. And I think that really the only major surprise this season has been Ottawa, has been the Red Blacks, right? I mean, it is what's going on here? Is it just order out of chaos? I mean, is this just does it take this long for teams to settle into their true identity? I mean, like, how would you describe what's going on here, Joe?
It's a good question because Edmonton took its sweet time to figure out that they needed to actually
Mm-hmm.
win games, and good on them for having found that. And it seems like there was one move they needed to make, and they made it finally. Uh, Winnipeg got off to an uncharacteristic slow start, and they've turned things around. BC's always been hot and cold, and right now, for like a month, they were cold, and now all of a sudden they're the hottest team in the CFL all of a sudden again. Just off of one game, but yeah, they're that's what, and I'll get into that further when we talk about the game. But that's the BC team that Commerce fans are like, they're gonna do this at some point, right? Like we're thinking about that team. I mean, Saskatchewan's doing what they always do: hot start, hit a slide.
Right.
About what we expected, middling to trending toward irrelevant, I guess. Montreal what we expected. Ottawa's the surprise out of the group
Right.
because they've been making strides the last few years, but not in the standings. So I think everybody was wait and see, and now we've waited and seen. And
Right.
about where everybody's got them, where everybody thought they were need to. So
Pretty
maybe
much.
the only real surprise is how low Hamilton's at, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the fact that the West doesn't have a team over 500. I think those are the
Well,
two,
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
including
this is
Ottawa. Those are the three surprises when you look at the standings from what we were thinking it would look like in week one.
yeah, right. Right, right. I mean, you had Calgary in last place in the West. And right now that seems to be the way things are heading there. Um, I mean, this it's wild because as it happens, it looks bizarre. But again, like if you take the bigger picture view, yeah, none of this is truly bizarre, right? We except for I would say except for the Red Blacks and the 500 in the West thing, pretty crazy. But I guess that makes sense. This has been a year of parity, despite this weekend's games necessarily. But this has been a year of parity. Many of these teams in their point differential are hovering around, 7 + 7 per game, absolute maximum, right? Most of these games, I wouldn't say most, but quite a few of these games are close. Quite a few of these games are coming down to one possession. Um, there's just a lot of parity in this league this year, and I think that's why everybody in the West is bunched up at 500 these days. And combined, I mean, again, I guess what's wild about this year in particular, CFL always goes like this. It's an 18 game season, so teams will have these 4 or 5 game jags. But this whole season, especially out west, has been a season of jags, right? Everybody's just running together these winning streaks or losing streaks. I mean, when was the last time the Lions won in Vancouver? It's been what, a month and a half?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. I mean, these streaks that are happening all over the league this year are just crazy. So it's making it look bizarre week to week. But I think in the end, if we could just have time traveled from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, I don't think very many people are going to be shocked. Now, once Ottawa's playing in the Grey Cup, yeah, okay, then we can be shocked. But for now, I don't. I think that many of us would not have been surprised to reach this point in the CFL. So it was just a thought that I had after watching this week's games, which began with, as Joe wanted to talk about, BC Lions 38, Ottawa Red Blacks 12. Ottawa was never really in this game. I felt like the offense by the end of the game produced just 277 total yards. Somebody must have been told that Drew Brown was my fantasy quarterback this week. And really the kind of the all-star of this game, where again the special teams, Devontae Dedmon had 113 in punt returns alone, and Richie Leone had some nice punts in the game. But these two guys were about the only bright spots for this team. And in fact, the special teams were giving the illusion that they were still in this game right until the fourth quarter. But then in that final quarter, they give up the 72-yard return to, I don't have the name here, but they give up the 72-yard return. And so that was kind of the dagger in this game. I thought that Nathan Rourke looked good. 21 of 30 for 325, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, especially considering that he had his foot off the pedal in that second half. So pretty good game for Nathan Rourke. I would ask you, Joe, BC going forward, how much of a legitimate threat is this? Are they still the favorite to take the West right now?
No, but only because they lost the tiebreaker when they had ample opportunity to take it.
Right.
Again, if we get this BC team, they're winning the Grey Cup. But this BC team doesn't show up every week. There's just something not quite right. They have talent. I was thinking about this earlier this week too. It's like they're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. Are they just missing like one last piece on defense to make that defense a little bit more intimidating? I mean, Matthew Betts helps.
Well, yeah.
But are they missing like a key linebacker? Maybe is how Montreal picked up Darnell Sankey last year and the defense transformed. Are they missing somebody like that could be more of a vocal leader out there? That could be just more, I guess, more star power on the defense, because the star power is all in the offense right now.
Mm.
Is that the piece they're missing? And I'm not expecting an answer on this. That's just a question I'm posing.
Well, clearly the defense is missing something. I mean, again, like they certainly look sharp, especially in that first quarter, knocking down a lot of passes, nice coverage on the receivers and whatever. But the truth is that, look, even in this game when they're winning by 26 points, they lost the turnover differential. They didn't turn the ball over once on Ottawa. That again, it's wild too, because okay, here is the game where you're going for the big play, right? You're running up 38 points. Okay, this is when at 31 going into that fourth quarter, this is when you're going for the big game interception. You're sending like 6 guys on the cover 0 blitz, right? But there's just, this defense is just not there. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens when they play a nice offense. Next week, BC's got Montreal. Or in a couple of weeks, they got Montreal. No, wait, next week, right? Montreal, BC is next week. They got them next week. So I'm going to be really interested to see, next week. I'd be really interested to see how many points they give up on this defense, because that could be a real scoreboard spinner next week if this defense plays like they have been playing this year, and to be honest, last year as well. They're just giving up too many points. Maybe you're right. Maybe they just lacked one punch. Somebody to produce something on that defense. But
yeah, it just feels like there's an inconsistency to that defense.
Oh yeah,
and the offense had a slump too in August. They had a rough go of it, even with between Vernon Adams going down, Nathan Rourke coming in and taking a little bit of time to fire out. Yeah, the offense didn't perform as expected, but that defense was never going to be able to bail them out either.
Right, and that makes the difference. There's been a couple of teams this year, i.e., Winnipeg and Montreal, for various reasons, whose offenses have not at stretches produced a lot. But the defenses are winning these games for them, or at least keeping them in these games, giving them
Winnipeg's case at stretches basically means the entire season.
Right. Well, I was trying to cover
one or two games.
Yeah, I was trying to cover Montreal. Yeah, the 2 games against BC. Right? I mean, that's when the Bombers' offense really came alive. But the defense was amazing in those 2 games, right? And that's the thing. It's an 18-game season. There will be games when your offense doesn't produce. You need to have a competent defense, right? BC is just like they're playing half a game out there. They're playing half a game, and this is why they're 500.
And I very much expect that to change next year, because their front office, their ownership, they've done a great job taking this franchise from an afterthought to a very an important cog in the Vancouver sports scene again.
Oh yeah,
it's just going to be, they got one more step to make, and I've been waiting for them to make that step now for a year and a half. It's going to happen. Oh, yeah. It just hasn't happened yet.
Well, yeah, it'll probably happen. I don't know about this year. Okay, so let's go on. Second game of the week. Winnipeg Blue Bombers 35, Saskatchewan Roughriders 33. Wow, nail biter. I imagine you aged, a couple of years during this game, Joe?
Do I have some more gray in here? I don't know. You want to check here? Is there some more gray hairs from last week?
Well, I'm sure. I guess the good news is, this being Labor Day, I'm sure you never felt comfortable in this game, even though the Bombers did open up pretty decent lead in that first half. They, despite the fact that this game came down to 2 points, after the first quarter, the Bombers never gave up the lead again.
No, but it felt like it. Even when they went ahead by a large margin, that was right after the hit on Zach Collaros and knocked him out for the game.
Right.
So even with that large margin, you're just like, okay, we're not quite to the second half yet. Jeez, can we fast forward here? Anything? Come on, let's go. Let's move. That's a whole second half as a Bomber fan. Because you just knew, even though it took Saskatchewan a while in the third quarter to start moving the ball, once they started, they weren't going to stop. And Winnipeg does not trust Chris Trevler to throw the ball more than 5 yards. So sustaining drives was going to be a problem when Saskatchewan realized, hey, look, we put 12 people within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and missed absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And you just watched it. The lead slowly evaporate, especially when they sat back with on the last drive and just let Trevor Harris complete 10-yard passes. And when the clock's stopping after every play, he had a little bit over a minute, and he comfortably got them into the end zone time-wise, because all they did was sit back and just go, okay, Trevor, take your 10, take your 10, take your 10, take your 10. They made the stop on the 2-point conversion.
Right.
because that's the stop they were really working. They were planning to make at that point because they were just
Right.
letting them walk down the field. No
Right.
change. There was one play call in that entire sequence that gave Saskatchewan the large chunk, and they telegraphed a blitz to Trevor Harris. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm on my chair going, they're sending everybody, they better get home. And they didn't.
Nope.
So if I'm sitting there in my chair knowing what you're doing, I'm going to guess that the guys up in the booth also do, because they're far smarter than me and they've been around the block.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary feeling when you're hoping for your defense to make that play. And then, of course, the onside kick was perfectly executed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
That
was
was
a
great.
beautiful play.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice kick.
I hated it, but it was a beautiful play.
Well, I mean,
the one quibble I have about the entire end of the game sequence there, though,
mm-hmm.
I only got to see this once, and I meant to go back and try to look at it again, but I didn't. I didn't get around to it. That pass interference that they called to give Lowther the 60-yard chance might have been the worst call I've ever seen in my life. because on the replay you see the wide receiver in basketball they would call charging. The bomber defender's planted, and the wide receiver bowls him over, and they throw a flag on the bomber defender. Like, really?
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Crowd liked it. Crowd reaction was great.
Loved it. And I will be happy. And if I'm wrong about that, well, I'm wrong about it. It doesn't matter anymore anyway. But I'm just sitting there going, you're going to make that call now and give them a chance to win. That was just part of that whole. They're going to find a way to lose, aren't they? And then the field goal is going straight. And you're just like, please don't have the legs. Please don't have the legs. And then you see Lucky catch it. It's like, oh, God.
Yeah, they were excited. The angle that we got on TSN for that was great too, because it looked like it was going straight through, but it wasn't far enough.
I'm happy because I'm usually a pretty calm person about these things, but Labor Day is its own beast. Like, I've been watching and paying attention to Labor Day games for 20 years now. They never get easier.
Yeah, apparently not. Well, there was a stretch there. There was a couple of seasons where Winnipeg was going 4-0 in these games. You know, these Rider games.
Sure, but if you go back and look, when they're winning the Labor Day game, it's by the skin of their teeth. And the next week they'll come and blow the Riders' doors off at the Badger Bowl. Now, that's exactly what I'm hoping to have happen this week too. I want to be very clear about that, especially since Zach Claros is practicing, and pissed off Zach Claros usually means 400 yards. So I'll take that too.
Well, that would be his best game of the season this year, right?
I'll take about time for it, right? Let's go.
It's interesting that you said that we're going to find a way to lose this game, because I feel like this is what has happened to the Riders. They started this season and they were, really irking me because they looked like the luckiest team in the league. But these days they seem to have body swapped with the Elks because they're finding new ways to lose. I mean, look, this whole game came down to a sequence in the second quarter. Right? I mean, the Riders were up 14-7. Then they give up the touchdown, right? The Bombers score to tie it up. Alford takes the Rouge, right? Then there's a 3-and-out. And then on the next punt, Alford makes just about the worst play I've ever seen him make. The Bombers recover it in the end zone. On the next drive, Deontay Williams is getting the pass interference on Kenny Lawler in the end zone, which was a pass interference, right, Joe?
That's what's
no
called.
dispute
Yeah,
there.
that might
Okay,
right. A Rider fan sitting in my seat would have probably said that's the worst call he's ever seen, and I would not have much to dispute it with.
All right, and so yeah, basically this like 3 drives or so determine the fate of the game for the Riders. I mean,
And that
they even
and
had
that offered play is something that would happen to the Bombers in the Labor Day games they'd lose.
right.
When that play happened, I had like the one feeling of hope I had the entire game.
Mhm,
Like that's the play that usually goes the other way and screws everything up. Maybe.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, and it was just. I mean that was the lead. They ran it up to 21 points there. That was the lead that the Riders could not come back from. It's just like so hard luck team the Riders are this season, but again, if you look at it from the outside, not too atypical after winning, 5 out of the first 6. Right. Next game. Wow. Well, thank you, Hamilton Tiger Cats. Tiger Cats 31, Toronto Argonauts 28. This was a bet that I made this week. And so the Ticats paid me off very well. Now, kind of a strange situation in Hamilton, right? Hamilton is now sitting at 3-8, and especially on TSN during the game, talking up their chances of somehow making the playoffs. They are 6 points, 3.5 games behind the Argos. But should we pump the brakes on the Ticats a little bit here, Joe? They have 3 wins, and 2 of them are against Toronto.
I didn't think we ever got that engine started this season, but it was a good
Well,
game for them.
yeah, it's a great game.
We're hoping to see some more of that. Those of us that like chaos, because that would make the standings at the end look even closer. I don't have any expectations to make the playoffs. I mean, it's a long haul either way. I mean, even if the West goes nuts and the Riders free fall and the Elks suddenly stall out, that's still a bit of a climb there too.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
somebody's gonna have to win some of those games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this was, I don't know. This was a strange game to me because here you have the Tiger Cats, and especially the defense is just flying all over the field, really hustling, really involved in this game. And the Argos looked like the replacement team. I mean, for those detractors of Chad Kelly, for those enjoying the Schadenfreude, well, statistically, he wasn't that bad. 24 of 30 for 322 yards, 1 touchdown. Ran in a touchdown as well, 1 interception. But he never really got going with this offense. And he did have the Sanchez-like play where he ran into his own offensive lineman to take the loss, which was
I just
really
wish he would have fumbled that. That would have been epic.
I was just going to say, if you're not in the Chad Kelly camp, and it's a pretty small camp at this point, you really enjoyed that play this week. Play of the week.
Honestly, I would have enjoyed that play if it was 8 out of 9 starting quarterbacks in the CFL. But that one in particular, yeah, I'll enjoy it a slight bit more. That should be gift and shared as often as the Kerwin Bell one.
Mm-hmm. Another regret for me in this game, Joe, was that okay, so in this game, we got to see let's see if I could do this one without stopping. Taulia Tagovailoa got to play some minutes here, and I was very sad that Rod Black is long gone because I felt, Joe, that we really needed someone to remind us of this matchup between Tua's brother and Jim Kelly's nephew. I don't know. Did you miss Rod this weekend?
Yeah, but I'm sure the people in Milwaukee are treating him well. His son is going up and down between Nashville and Milwaukee, but nice to have him around.
All right. And not much more to say about this game. Toronto, whew. I mean, is there can they get better? I mean,
Yeah.
here's Chad. By all appearances, looks like a pretty decent quarterback. I feel a bit concerned about the connection he's having with this offense still. But I mean, can this team even be a threat in that first round playoff game?
Yeah, absolutely. And it took
Okay.
Nathan Rourke a couple weeks, taking off my distaste for him and his actions. He's only had 2 starts. Nathan Rourke on start 3 went nuts. So it could very easily happen,
Okay.
especially I want to say Toronto's up or no, Toronto's in Ottawa this week, and then they go to BC. So it's not going to be an easy run for them in the next little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But remember, this is the quarterback that helped this team go 16-2, and so there's pieces missing. They may
Yes.
not be that same team, but they were pretty damn good last year. I don't see any reason why they couldn't have a hot streak with what they have left.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, there's plenty of time to whip off a nice 4-game win streak. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be a tough haul given that their schedule is going to be at Ottawa, at BC, home against Hamilton, home against Montreal.
Yeah.
Like they needed to have made hay earlier this season at Winnipeg in Week 19 when both teams are probably playing for something. Like they don't have an easy out the rest of the season. Like even at Edmonton Week 21, Edmonton might be playing for a playoff spot at that point. So
Yeah.
like if there is a team that's a free space in the bingo card, it's Hamilton, and they happen to be rivals, so that doesn't even help them there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we get to that game in the season, I mean, you'd have to go with Toronto because it would be
Yeah.
very strange to see a 3-game sweep, or at
Yeah.
least 3 games in a row by Hamilton over Toronto this season. I mean, again, but who knows? I was blown away by this game. I mean, just that the Argos are the ones with all the names on the team, right? They're the ones with DeVaris Daniels. They're the ones with Kadeem Carey. You know, they should be smoking in this game. But Hamilton got off to that 23 lead. And again, this lead was safe this week. Just couldn't come back enough. Toronto could not. From the I hope you had him in fantasy department, Tim White, 6 catches, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. Joe, did you have him in fantasy this week?
I did.
Nice.
And I had Bell. And I had Bo. Guess who forgot to
Wow.
set their fantasy lineup until like halftime of the Sunday game.
Wow.
And I won my matchup, so
Wow, lucky for
thank you, Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. And I thank Hamilton as well. There's nothing better than taking the underdog and watch them going up 21-3 in the first quarter. That's just fantastic. I'm banking that money by halftime. That was fantastic. Way to go, Hamilton. And I didn't think I'd ever say that this season, but way to go, Hamilton Tiger Cats. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not usually in your vocabulary.
No, not for me, man. Not for me. I'm a Hamilton phobe, basically. All right, so final game. Interesting game. Edmonton Elks 35, Calgary Stampeders 20. I mean, essentially, let's put it down to 5 words. Total domination by the Elks. McLeod Bethel Thompson had the game of the year for him. He had the video game stats, 25 of 36 for 486 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And it wasn't just the passing game either. At this point, I was kind of wishing I still wrote my column, because at one point the Elks brought out the 3 running backfield out there with Javon Lee, Kevin Brown, and Justin Rankin. And I mean, hey, through the course of this season, they've built up, a 3-deep running core here. So why not run the full house backfield? Why not?
Oh God, throw Trey Ford in there. Who's going to take the ball?
Exactly.
That's why they were so effective with Javon League in that fighter game, was you didn't know which fast guy
right.
key on. Now you got 4 of them. Well, Rankin's a little bit more of a power back, but still, then you have to respect that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, let's go back to Stone Age football here. Forget the forward pass. Let's do that.
Let's see some fullback option out there. So, but I mean, geez, they didn't even have to do. I mean, again, like where did this Elks offense come from? In the passing game, Tevin Jones, 208 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Curley Gittens and Eugene Lewis combined for 13 catches and 227 yards plus a touchdown. I mean, Jesus. I mean, again, where has this offense been? They're just stacked in here. They got so much talent here. On the other side, wow. I think the Calgary playing above their level that they have been doing all season is finally over. Jake Meyer, 4 interceptions. As far as I can tell, he's never thrown that many as a starter in the CFL. I wonder. I feel like going back to his college career and see if he's ever had such a bad game, because Edmonton was tormenting him in this game. I guess the question becomes, can the Elks catch the Riders?
Well, let's see. What do the standings say? 4-8 against 5-6-1. So basically behind by 2 games.
Right.
I'm gonna say yes.
All right. Well, yeah.
Because this weekend might be one right there. Banjo Bowl for Saskatchewan. Edmonton gets to host the back-to-back with Calgary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They both have buys in week 15. And then it gets a little bit tougher for Edmonton. They get Winnipeg back-to-back in week 16 and 17. Saskatchewan goes to Calgary and hosts Ottawa, so it's still not free spaces there. Okay. Oh, and then in week 18 they face each other. So by then they might be working on trying to settle who's third and last out there.
Yep. That could be. Yeah, that'd be a surprisingly key game. Nobody had that at the beginning of the year, I'm sure. That final week game between Saskatchewan and Edmonton being crucial to the playoff picture.
Well, there's still 3 weeks to go after that, but still, that might establish who's in control for those 3 weeks
of that 3 spot. Yeah. Well, it's nice for Edmonton. Yeah, they may have a tough stretch here going forward, but they're finally built for it. Now they can finally play in these games. Again, like at the beginning of the season, they're finding ways to lose these games. Now they're not. Now they're taking no prisoners lately. It's just like open up the lead and keep it. So good for them. Good for Edmonton. No name change. Right. So let's go to next week's games. But first, I'm going to talk up our sponsor, Royal Retros, at royalretros.com. When they say retros, they're talking about retro memorabilia. Get your baseball caps, jerseys, t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, jackets, and much, much more at royalretros.com. They have the gear and the paraphernalia representing the dozens of defunct teams from the USFL, from Arena Football, World Football League. Love the World Football League. XFL 1.0, I guess you would call it. Football Canada, various pro hockey leagues, including the World Hockey Association. They've got teams from ABA basketball. Love the Spirits of St. Louis gear they have. And, of course, the Pacific Coast League and Negro League teams of yesteryear. Best of all, you can get 10% off anything in the store when you use promo code RWBCFL, Rouge, White, and Blue CFL, at checkout. That's royalretros.com, and enter promo code RWBCFL for 10% off. Okay. Joe, last week, we had a dandy playoff scenario that did not come to pass. So
that actually did come to pass. Montreal's in the playoffs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, Montreal is in, but the West crossover is still possible. Right?
Well, yeah, the crossover is still wide open. The thing you might be conflating here is Montreal now has enough points to prevent all 4 teams in the West, or 4 teams in the West, for finishing higher than they will.
Okay.
So that means they're in the playoffs, even if, like, in theory, Calgary could catch them. But even if that happens, enough teams in the West will fall below Montreal to make a crossover on Montreal impossible.
Okay.
Assuming Montreal also falls to third.
Okay.
So somebody did the math. Montreal cannot be eliminated.
Yeah.
So they're in.
Yeah. All right.
That's too
Yeah.
much math for me. I'll take their word for it.
Right. Step one on the repeat championship year for the Alouettes. Last week, I just wanted to put this humble brag a little bit. I was 4-0 in CFL Pick'em last week. Now, I only bring this up not because my record for the season, 32-52, is all that brilliant, but I only wanted to bring this up to say that, look, anytime on this show that I pick the Bombers to win and Joe doesn't, go with me. Go with me. Joe is a feckless fan. He needs to be backing his team because I beat him every time when he doesn't. So, Joe, start backing your team, man.
I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious.
Okay, here we go. Next week's games, we have the BC Lions, wow, being 3-point underdogs at Montreal. Montreal coming out of the bye, coming out of several weeks of games that I feel were too close for comfort for the Alouettes nation. But I don't know. Like I've said on this show, I, unlike Joe, am not going against my team in CFL Pick'em this year. So I'll take the Alouettes to win this game. I think that probably from a betting perspective, the smart bet here is probably the over, despite the Alouettes defense, because I think the Lions have shown they're capable of scoring a lot of points. Pretty much, I would say, against anybody, like they've been doing for the past couple of years. On the other hand, again, I think the Lions defense is sorely lacking. I think you're going to see a lot of points. I'll take Montreal for the win.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I'm not even going to worry too much about it. Montreal has it together.
Mm-hmm.
They found the missing piece.
Yeah.
They continue to play very, very well. But versus the team I believe is one piece away on the road. Pretty simple pick, in my opinion.
Okay.
Now watch us both be wrong.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's not that simple.
No. But like it's the logic I'm using makes it feel pretty clear cut, which usually is a bad sign for me.
Okay. All right. Next up, we have Toronto Argonauts, 1.5-point underdogs at Ottawa. Wow. So the book is looking at a tie here. The book is looking at the last second field goal in this game. Now, okay, for Ottawa, they've made the transaction that Armstead has been released.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is Jamal Morrow on the team?
Yep.
I can't imagine that he would be active.
He gets signed to the practice roster. I believe they have another back on the practice roster too, and it's just going to be a question, okay, who starts?
Okay. Now, Ottawa looked pretty bad last week, other than Armstead. Toronto has been looking bad for a while. Toronto has been crushed by the East, except for the one game that they looked fantastic at Montreal in. Really kind of blew me away in that game. Can Ottawa really pull this one off? I want to go with Ottawa here, but
I'm going Ottawa. I'm writing last week off to a long ass haul. They went a long way traveling. East teams traveling out to Vancouver tend not to do well. They went even a little further west. And obviously a very pro BC crowd. BC got off to a hot start. You put all that together, especially with a team that's youngish, especially at quarterback. Easy to see how that one steamrolls. And you just go, okay, next week, let's go.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, when you're sitting 7-3-1, you're doing something pretty dang good. So You can let that one go and just carry on with what you're doing.
Okay, so you're gonna take the Red Blacks here, huh? I'm in danger of taking the 4 home teams this week, so I guess I'll take the Argos here for the sake of pick 'em. I can see this. I can see this one going either way. Now I've kind of been waiting for the other shoe to drop with Ottawa this season. I've kind of been a little bit of a skeptic on the Red Blacks in that I'm not sure that they're this good a team as their record shows. So maybe this is a game that they drop. I just can't imagine the Argos like being this bad against the East this year. I mean, they're going to end up like 1-9 against these teams the way that they've been playing the East. Right. All right. So game 3, here it is, Joe. The Banjo Bowl, which will be attended by Joe Pritchard in person. The Riders are just a 3-point underdog at Winnipeg. Now, last game, Zach Collaros went out. Adam Bighill went out again for the Bombers. Do we know any injury news this far out?
Collaros is already practicing. Bighill probably won't be at all for a while.
Okay. Now they survived.
Newfield are both practicing too, so that's good signs for the offensive line.
Okay.
So as far as injuries go, it could have been worse.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Winnipeg has been a little bit cursed in this regard this season.
And Saskatchewan's down to a couple of healthy offensive linemen, so they have some issues to deal with themselves.
Yes.
I should say Micah Johnson did a hell of a job as a fill-in. Not that Winnipeg decided to do anything to try to exploit that, but that just might be my bitterness talking.
You won, Joe. You won.
It didn't feel like it, right?
Right. It's the
because you spend the whole second half going, oh God. It takes a while to get that out of your system.
Right. Yeah, it's the classic Pyrrhic victory. Okay, so now Joe is confident that the Bombers are going to win. They couldn't possibly let you down in person, right, Joe?
Oh, they've done that a million times, but they do pretty well at Banjo Bowl when I'm there. So,
all right, there you go. Yeah, you're still riding that mojo. Right? All right, so yeah, I'm going to go Bombers here too. Wow, the Riders seem to be in a state of great depression here. I just don't see the way out here. Maybe that game against Calgary is the way out for the Riders, but whoa.
No, the Riders had all the intangibles last week. This week it's our turn. So
sure, yeah, but I mean, the Riders have had several games like this. They should have beaten Montreal too. Mm-hmm. Now again, they're finding ways to lose these games all of a sudden. Whereas in the beginning of the season, they were finding ways to win. So right. It's like
whereas I'm hoping we have a repeat of last year, where the game was over in the first 3 minutes. Now the scoreboard took a while to reflect that, but the game was over. There was no way they were competing that day.
Yeah. I still remember that one. Yeah. Okay, and finally, once again, we're going to close out with Calgary Stampeders, just 2.5-point underdogs at Edmonton.
That's insulting.
I don't know about this. This is a classic teams going in opposite directions game. Calgary has not been good on the road all season long. Why should I believe them here? Why am I only giving 2.5 points if I'm betting on Edmonton? I don't know. I like the Elks again. The Elks could win by 15 again.
They could. If this was structured differently, if Edmonton had hosted last week and Calgary was hosting this week, I'd go, yeah, maybe Calgary can do the rivalry thing where they host their hot opponent and take them down a notch. But given that last week was at Calgary and that didn't happen, I can't see it happening here either. It's pretty much the same principle I've got going Saskatchewan, Winnipeg. It's Calgary, Edmonton. So same idea. The team that's on the downslide is going into their rival's home after having already lost them their place. Not loving their chances.
Yeah. yeah, and through this whole season, I feel like we've seen this process of teams figuring out how to best stifle Jake Mayer's offense in Calgary, and I feel like that last game is just it's just getting worse. It's just getting worse. I was trying to decide what kind of game it would take for me to start feeling sorry for Mayer in this game because I'll tell you what, if he throws 4 picks and takes a couple of sacks again like he did last week, whoa. I think the chatter is going to begin in Calgary about
Well, I
some.
could start some of that if you want to. I actually had this thought. I had this thought while I was watching the Hamilton game.
Okay.
Like, let's assume Calgary is going to be looking for a new quarterback in the offseason. It's a pretty safe assumption at this point, I would say. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's early to speculate, but it feels like we're going that direction. Let's say Vernon Adams isn't available. He goes somewhere else. Who's number 2? Who's their second target?
Wow. Wow.
Think about that.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I love it. I
Because
love it. That would be
there's no way Bo's staying in Hamilton next year unless
right.
something really changes. Because Scott Milanovic, right? Milanovic made it clear he was looking to the future before Taylor Powell got hurt.
Right.
So unless
Right.
Bo, unless there's a change of heart somewhere, or unless Hamilton just starts going on a run, makes the playoffs, makes a noise in the playoffs, all of a sudden they have a decision to make. I could see Hamilton moving on and Bo probably wanting to, based off of what has already happened this season. So, like,
Wow.
who else is available
That
beyond
would be
VA?
that would be one heck of a storyline.
It would be.
That would be fantastic for the league. Yeah. Reunification. That would be great. And I bet a lot of I'm sure a lot of prognosticators would have Calgary near the top of the West next season if that did happen. Wow, that's a
It
great
would.
storyline, Joe.
It
That's
would be
great.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be.
Obviously, it makes too much sense to ever happen, but
I hear you.
or maybe not enough. Who knows?
That's just so crazy. It's bound to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's wrap it up for this week. You have been listening to or watching, alternatively, the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast, a production of the Shotgun Sports Network, sponsored by RoyalRetros.com. My name's Oz Davis. I have been the co host of the show. For my co host, Joe Pritchard, we are out of here. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you next week. Have fun at the banjo pool, Joe.